Obviously, that comes out when you're all done, but I remember when we were talking about before, you were talking about something about one parking space and you thought it was another page, so.
Because what happens is when we copy on our computers, it's not always the same as the copy machine.
Well, no, but you were talking about Melvin and
Yep.
he was looking at page, the first time it was referenced, and you were looking at prohibitions.
I'm happy to wait and work on it another time.
Yeah.
I will make one observation.
Yeah,
Okay, page 4, line 20. We talked about a limit on Union Wharf Road as to where the no parking was, and that isn't in there.
oh, okay,
Okay.
yep.
And the other thing is, we've got in here $50 per day fine for violation, which is great, but we don't address no parking areas. I don't believe at all. And what I would suggest is that we put something in about no parking areas, and that it would be appropriate to have a higher fine level for parking in a no parking area as opposed to just parking.
Oh, parking over a limit or something, time limit.
Yeah, right. So parking at night in an area that's restricted from night parking is $50. But let's say parking along where there's a no parking area, maybe that's a $100 fine. If we're-
So I put, one of the, highlighted this, that, I highlighted two sections, because I was not sure where we wanted to go with them, it's just something to think about when we meet again. One is about it says the intended purpose of parking automobiles belonging to owners of island property tucked around their guests. I don't know if that's a valid statement, it should be in there or not, on the,
Yeah,
because I know people also for day fishing might put their vehicle there too. I don't know if that's appropriate.
well, it also, the next line says, also
Also
intended for
intended. Yeah.
parking automobiles to launch a boat.
Yeah.
So, I don't think they're inconsistent.
Let's see, I need to pull this back up to this, the next line should have been 28, should be right after use. And the other part of it, it's on weekends, they may be retained at the police station. The only thing with that, and I mentioned to Karen, is we don't really do petty cash, so I need to
Figure out a way to deal with that.
Deal with that,
Right.
'cause we don't do change, like, somebody comes in to pay for, typically when somebody comes in for like a license for, we usually send them over here to get the change,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
ahead of time.
Mhm.
So we need to wait to figure how to handle that and address that.
Yep.
That's why I highlighted it, those two.
Excellent job,
Okay.
especially the last page with K, L, and M.
Yeah.
That was well worded. What is the best way to enact the final product? Do you recommend public hearing?
I think you need a
Town
public
board.
hearing.
You have
But
it.
it's required by law that we have a public hearing. Yep.
I think, though, first we need to have another meeting to actually go through it and.
Well, I would
there's a couple
suggest,
things.
once we get a final draft, it needs to go to the town attorney for
Right.
review,
Review.
all right? And then we hold a public hearing.
Does the
before it's-
municipal association have any input? Is that resource?
Municipal Association?
There is in Concord, but I don't know that,
Okay.
Oh, those people.
yeah, those people.
And there are other areas in town, like the rec area and the different parking lots. And for example, they're all handled individually, correct?
Well, they fall under, I have other parking, water access. Like, there is a general under prohibitions, perhaps I should put an H in and move stuff down and add about other parking areas, something in there.
Yeah, because I think people use the library for an internet hub.
Yeah, they do,
So that,
But
you probably have to talk to the library about it.
how they want it.
But they're in their vehicles, so.
But it's
Well,
still
that's-
parking.
Sometimes people sit out there, but well, yeah, they're in their vehicles. As other stuff, I know you, Adam talked about the meeting with the camps. That was with the Alice program that Sergeant Hathcock's instructor for. That's alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. So we did that. We talked about getting maps of the camps up to date, as mentioned. You talked about the stop the bleeding. That, I know we went to that several years ago, kind of a training, and we talked about being used at the Boston Marathon bombing, being able to, some lives were saved because some officers had that. And it was training that was done here, just prior to Dan Doherty getting shot in Manchester. It's from experience from the military over in Iraq and Afghanistan, where they
Absolutely, yeah.
started learning about hemostatic dressings and what worked, what didn't work.
The technology and techniques that we have available today are much advanced from what they were even 20, 30 years ago in terms of
Well, the old training
preventing the bleed out.
with tourniquets was you don't do them unless it's and you're supposed to put them. And I think the program that Adam talks about does it close, but we're taught put them up high because you just want to make sure you stop the bleeding as fast as possible and self-administer. How to self-administer if you can.
On that note there, we're fortunate that this town is a compliment. Both you and your sergeant have extensive background in rescue and EMS and whatnot, and it shows.
But I was taught not to do tourniquets as a last resort.
That's right.
And now the thing is,
Lose a limb, save a life.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's,
things change.
what you were always taught in the old days is, once you put a tourniquet on, you don't take the tourniquet off. And so what that might do is endanger the limb. But if the choice is endanger the limb or endanger the life, you have to broaden your view out a little bit and do what you can to prevent a bleed out.
Our server was done last week. There's still a few minor things like indexing needs to finish and backups need to be up to date. Still is, but it was done. Everything seems to be working. It's just indexing isn't done. So trying to find files has been a little challenging. We have also I got prices on the radar signs. One of them sent me something that was totally, it's like on wheels. It was wheels like a dolly, you move it. I'm like, that's not exactly what we were talking.
Right.
But I did get some prices.
You had a price for one that's a pole mounted one.
We had a price that Karen had got.
Right.
And then we got another price about the same. I've got two other prices about the same, but I got one that's significantly cheaper from somebody I met at IACP last fall when I went down there. About $1,400 cheaper, I think. Not when you're all, by the time you get it, but it's about at least $1,000 cheaper. So I'll be talking to them again to make sure I understand exactly what's with it, nothing missed. One of the prices was cheap, sort of, but you have to, you don't have to, but part of the package is a software suite to do your 85% and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cloud-based and it's subscription-based, so the cost they want you to
Keep on going.
keep on going, and I asked what happens if you don't.
It's a Gillette model, yeah.
What if you don't? Well, no, you still keep you still have your stuff, but you don't have access to that. And it's also, it's got a couple of neat things to it, like it actually does the data by cellular, so you don't have, so if something were to happen, it also takes pictures too. But I said, you can't have pictures in New Hampshire, we can't
Right.
do that, so I had to kind of say, well, you can shut that off. It was kind of frustrating, because I know I've had this conversation with them. But anyway, the other one was cheaper and seems to be a good product, so I'll be confirming everything with them, and I make my recommendations after that.
And how about the trailer?
The trailer's working, ready as soon as we dry up a little more probably. Shoulder's still a little soft in spots, so
But it's ready to go.
it's ready to go. We checked it out, and then after it was checked out, I said, "Did you check it out when it wasn't plugged in?"
Right.
So we double checked it, and it's working.
Could it go in the fire station parking lot at Melbourne? Is it dry enough there?
In the parking lot,
Yep.
it could probably go there. I don't usually put it in the parking lot.
I know you've done it in the
space.
past.
Yeah. Well,
I usually put it in the roadway out in front or something.
yeah.
So
And certainly some areas are still muckier than others, but they're
yeah, it's trying.
we're probably getting to the point where you
Yeah.
can find
Put it
a
out.
location to put it up.
Yep. Drug take backs this Saturday, 10 to 2. That's it's something, one of the things we do. Carroll County Coalition for Public Health has worked with us on that. Well, we worked with DEA on it, and I still gotta find out where our letter is for our waiver, but anyway. waiver from some of the rules that they're supposed to do every year, every time.
Well, there have been a lot of announcements on TV, so I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
I have a funny feeling that even if the waiver isn't signed, I doubt the Attorney General's office is going to be
Yeah.
too upset. But they assured me the letter's coming. So anyway, because if you don't have the letter, you have to have 2 people present at all times, and you have to, 2 officers, and you're supposed to transport it directly to the destruction site versus now with this, they waive it to 1 officer and you can relay it to another set of
Site.
officers,
Uh-huh.
which we do Monday. So what happened is next Monday morning, I have to get it at a certain time to the transfer site.
and the drug take back is Saturday
Saturday,
at
10
the
to 2.
transfer
At the
station,
transfer
10 to 2.
station. Yep. So it's done. One of the other things coming up is a project that, I guess, NISTA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, working with Department of Motor Vehicles, has brought a program from other states here called Safe Stop. Operation Safe Stop has to do with school buses and people that pass school buses with the lights and the signs out. So that's gonna be coming up in May. We're gonna have a day.
I saw that email, and it went out from the school district, right, to the
Yes, the school
towns.
district,
So,
well,
I-
yeah.
And I'm kind of head slapping the idea that we have people that drive past stop school buses in this town, maybe.
Well, that's one of the things, it was kind of, the way it was rolled out, it was a little confusing. Because they said there's like 10 towns, it's a trial, this is the first year they're trying it in the state kind of thing. And then they said 8 others jumped on, so we're now at 18. And that email went to Vicky, who forwarded it to me, and it kind of got lost in the shuffle. I didn't see it, and so we had a meeting actually right here in Tufton Borough, Manchester Chiefs, and and the guy made his presentation from NISTA, and somebody asked what towns were involved, and he said it's in the emails I sent out. So, and hindsight, it came out that it was here in this district, was one of them. So found later, and then it was catch up to get up to date. I did talk to transportation. They're gonna get me the time, the locations and places, and they typically see
But
it.
we actually have people driving around stop school buses in this
They
town.
say that on,
Well, the bus drivers would be the people that knew,
yeah,
certainly.
that's the idea behind this. The bus drivers will say, these are the places that we have a problem, and on that particular day, we're gonna assign some people to give a little extra attention to those locations. And it's partnered, I mean, I've talked to state police and the sheriffs if we need more officers to do it. So, that was largely it. The other part is working with the Carroll County Coalition. Public Health was also prevention. They have prevention, although their funding got cut back, but they're still a prevention coordinator. And the other thing that started up, talking about changes in the court, is drug court starting up. Has started, I think, last week, 2 weeks ago. So we had a meeting about that last month. That's gonna be for certain people that meet certain criteria. They have to go through an intensive program with treatment. They have like, I wanna say they have 10 contacts a week or 7 contacts a week between either court, or probation, or law enforcement. They get random, they have to call in a number, and they find out if they have to do a random drug test, and it's when it follows the protocols, and this is, my concern is this, we weren't given some of the resources that other counties have gotten. When they follow the protocols, it's done right, it's been proven to be effective for those people and that meet that criteria. But they tend to be high risk, people that have seriously addicted and high risk. It's not and high risk of reoffending. So it's not the low risk person or the person who's not likely to reoffend. Anyway, so we'll see how it works out. I'm hopeful it works out. I shouldn't say it that way. I'm hopeful it works out, but we weren't giving any extra time for probation, so it's going to pull a probation officer away from their regular duties. Whereas, and I asked the question, Justice Nato came up to talk about it, she's the head of the Superior Courts, and I said, is there any extra, so they got funding for the court part, they got funding for the treatment part, but the big part of the supervision, but she feels that it's gonna be a reallocation of time. These are people that they would have been dealing with in the normal caseload, so their caseload moves, and I'm not sure about that.
Is there anything the selectmen can do to assist you in your supporting this program?
No, we'll see. That's my only concern, is we weren't given more probation time to deal with it. I think that's what I've heard in other counties. If the caseload gets too high on the probation officers, they can't necessarily do the rest of the contacts a week. That makes it effective.
Well,
But they get intense treatment, and it's great when it works.
we obviously have an issue in this county. We're not exempt from it. Didn't they just have a death in the jail that was related to
I
overdose?
don't know why, but there was a death in the jail, yes.
Yes.
So that's something new, and obviously it'll be I don't think it's gonna affect us a lot, because it's really gonna affect probation, it's gonna affect the sheriff's department, because they're gonna have to assign somebody to it. And we do have a drug task force working in the county now. It's just for Carroll County. It's been pretty busy with stuff, so, and it's kind of the news that's going on.
Okay.
I have one thing to bring up. You have a job performance review in one of your offices
Yep.
due this month?
Yep,
Work in progress.
yep, I'll be done.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. All right. Now we have,
Is he outside? Is it Josh?
Yes, good morning.
yep, come on down, Josh.
Come on in. I'm Lloyd Wood. Thank you for waiting.
Oh, absolutely.
Josh, Bill Markison, nice to meet you.
How are you doing today?
I'm well. Good day for a drive.
Yeah, beautiful day for the drive.
Where did you have to travel from?
I live in Portsmouth, so it's just headed to the office in Chichester after here. So if this was last Monday, it would have been a whole different time.
Yes.
right?
Oh, yes.
It would have.
Yeah.
Good timing on your
Yes,
part.
flawless. So yeah, Karen said you guys had some questions about the options you have for making the town assessing data available online. So I'm here to answer whatever questions you have in whatever capacity. I told Karen on the phone this will be the worst sales job ever, because just here to answer
Now,
questions.
it's my understanding that what we're looking at here will provide the general public with access to the assessment card information online the same way that subscribers get it today. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, if you do, yeah, this is for the expanded configuration there, exactly. So just to, in terms of background, your data is available online now, limited to people who don't wish to purchase a subscription, so they can see. I don't know if you visited the site, you can huddle around here, we can look if you have questions, but so they can see assessments, building assessment, land assessment, features, location and acreage, and who owns it. Beyond that, if you wish to see like details of the building, like when it was built, the square footage, stuff like that, or the breakdown of current use, picture of the building, stuff like that, you need to, currently under the town's availability, the user needs to purchase a subscription from Avatar to see more than that. So this option here would make it so that everybody, whether they purchased a subscription or not, would be seeing all access to all tabs of data. If that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Including whatever personal data is on there, the property owner.
Right. Right now, the full owner address is available because I think Karen can correct me if I'm wrong, that was something you guys wanted to have available. This, and just, Karen and I had spoken on Friday as far as some numbers. There's 131 towns that are currently available online in some capacity. We have, I lose track because we've been adding several, but there's probably five communities that said we don't want our information available in any capacity, even if it's not costing the town a nickel. We just don't want it up there. Fine, no problem. So beyond that, there's 131 municipal databases that are available. Of that, 35, or about a quarter, have this public access that you're considering here. Those are the towns that said, we know that the users can purchase a subscription, but we want everybody in the town to have the same access without people signing up for a $25 subscription or whatever it is for a month, you know. So about a quarter of them have public access, and then about 5% have the full address available, the full owner address. So back to your question about the personal details. There's nothing about exemptions or credits on there. But yeah, if you consider the full owner mailing address of personal detail, then 5% of the towns have opted to do that. Our initial, this whole site dates back 2003 or so when it first became available. In fact, the whole sort of pricing model dates back to then, because originally we said, here it is, it's available, and all the towns said that's great, but we don't have the money to pay for it. So we revisited and said, well, the people who ought to pay for it are the ones to whom the access, the easy access is worth the most. And those are the banks, the appraisers, surveyors that find it worth purchasing a subscription to. So they're the ones that are most, 75% of the communities are subsidizing the access for everybody else. So it sort of works for everybody. So the initial thing back then, when it first started, was to not make the owner address available, just because at the time people were a lot less comfortable. I don't know that anybody's really comfortable now, but we didn't want this to become a site where somebody could just sit there and figure out, find everybody that had vinyl or didn't have vinyl siding and get all their mailing addresses and send them an offer for vinyl siding. That wasn't what we were in business to do, as you guys are our customers. So that's why the number of towns that have said, yes, we want the full address to be available is a definite minority. Of those, if we went and asked everybody now, I'm sure more would do it. It's as much an information thing as, knowing it's available as deciding one way or another not to make it available. But that's sort of the breakdown of where things are now. And so, yeah, as far as the personal details of the full owner address, a lot of them you could probably glean from the parcel location is shown there, so if there's a building on there and the parcel location, you could probably guess the owner's address even if it wasn't available.
So with a subscription, you get the personal address?
In either case, they get the full mailing address, right? If we went in now and said, I'm a guest user without a subscription, you have access to that general tab, which shows the owner information and the parcel assessments. So with or without a subscription now, the full address would be available, yeah.
So the substantive change is just the
it's
detail on the...
It's to
on
make the full assessment card available, and you actually, you can,
If the option is we don't want anybody to have access to the full mailing address, I could go back to the office and have them turn that off now, regardless of whether you do this other option to make all of it available without subscription. So there's a few little menu options that we can change regardless of whether you opt to do this or not. If that answers your question, or?
Yeah, what makes
Okay.
me feel better. I mean,
Okay.
I don't mind having the information available.
Right.
I'm just uncomfortable with the selectmen as representatives of the town putting this massive amount of data about our town out there on the internet. It just-
In that the mailing address specifically, or all of it?
Well, personally, all of it, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm willing to change my mind.
well,
Yeah.
I mean, if it's...
Here I guess is the rub, if you will. It's all public information. The question is, how do you access it?
Right.
Do you access it through the web portal, or do you access it by calling and talking to Karen or Jackie and saying,
Right.
oh, I need a copy of this assessment card? And
Sorry.
as it is today, the answer is they call the office, somebody will call the office and say, can I get this information?
And to be honest with you, that, from my end of it, that would be the most beneficial for me, that saves, because people, I actually didn't, like you said, you know how you said when people originally signed up, the mailing addresses weren't included? I didn't know that,
Right.
and I finally had someone call me. People probably just put up with it, you know, and then someone that's a subscriber called and said, I'm paying for this, but I can't see the mailing address. I said, oh, you know, and then I called you guys and found out it was an option.
Right.
I
So
didn't
that's
know it was
an
something that we
information thing
could.
we need to be better about letting people know, but yeah.
Oh, I didn't mean it
Yeah.
as a criticism,
No,
I
it's-
just
it's-
meant that's
it's-
how I found out, you know.
I'll like the
Why does it
criticism.
need the address?
That's a good question, I don't know why, and to be honest with you, in my position, I'm not allowed to ask why.
Really?
Right.
So
Like,
somebody
right to
calls
know
up and
is
says,
totally, you
"I
can't ask
want-
why.
I want Chip Alby's physical and mailing address, you can't ask them why?
No, you actually can't as part of the right to know law.
And if they came in, if they asked for the
So
card
the
or
right
the
to,
counter, it
no,
would be
it's not
there.
part of the right to know law. The right to know law does not include anything about private citizens, anything. So if someone called up and said, I need to know Bill Stockman's mailing address and physical address, you have absolutely the right to ask why. There's nothing in the right to know law that addresses
And perhaps
information other than governmental information. So I'm just,
maybe
and
that's
I'm not
something to
trying
talk about, because I've always been taught I can't ask why.
Really?
Yes.
Well, you can.
Well,
And actually, you can ask why if they ask for our information. That,
the right to know law identifies, in terms of information that's protected, certain classes of information. I don't think mailing address is one of those. I know email address is one, but there's
You're right.
a long list of things, but I don't think the mailing address
And
is protected.
and certainly if they came to the counter, that mailing address would be on the assessment card.
Thank you for expanding on that, you're right, that's
Yeah.
right, it's not something that's protected, that's correct.
So,
it's not even addressed. So it's, the premise of 91A was to present to the public governmental activity.
right,
So are we assuming that assessment cards are governmental activity?
Yes.
it's a public record, yeah. Just like the deeds are public records, okay?
Are they?
Property transaction deeds, those are all available.
No, I appreciate that.
Right, same thing.
Excuse me.
But I think it's a stretch to say that we're delving into 91A.
Well,
And I'm still uncomfortable with having the town as an active agent and putting out information to that extent. I mean, if somebody wants to come here and search records, that's one thing, but, you know, we're an aging community. I know people personally who've been affected by Jamaicans or Nigerians or whoever it is that calls up on a scam, you know, lottery or
Right.
some other.
I got 2 of those calls last week, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they didn't get it off any assessment.
Well, I have no idea. but
Because there's nothing about
an
phone
easy-
number here.
An easy,
Yeah.
an easy reference would be, hey, here's $1 million
Yeah.
property on Lake Winnipesaukee. Maybe I'll make a phone call there. I mean, they've got
Yeah.
money, probably money to spare. and they're-
Right, and it is back to your question of the personal aspect of it. There's nothing about exemptions or credit, so if there was somebody with an elderly exemption out there, it's not showing, regardless of which option you choose or whatever like that. So stuff like that, I don't know where it falls in the right to know and stuff like that, but it's not available on the website.
I have a couple questions for you.
Certainly.
The tax cards that we have, you go on the computer.
Yep.
What would it cost to put those online so someone can?
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well,
That's $2,700 a year.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
That's right.
Okay.
there's one option I will mention. There are some communities that have a vendor for their mapping programs. I think we've
Yeah,
talked to you about
and
maps
that's-
about something else.
And that's, we're working in that direction.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So Ashton in our office gave you
Yeah.
some cost for that. These other towns, they have access to the cartographic system, Cartographic Associates, I think they're CAI now. And in those communities, it's a slight distinction, but we do have an option to export the assessment cards to individual PDFs. It's an automated thing. So in that case, you're right. You're saying this information from the assessment cards is what we're talking about here. The only qualification I would add is there's another option. If you wanted to say, forget the Avatar site, we're going to either do it ourselves or through some other vendor, we do have an option where you could crank out the actual, they would look like the assessment cards that they get over the counter in a PDF form. So if that was the question, that option is available too.
And that's tied into the GIS.
Right, yeah, but
Right.
mostly because it provides the sort of front end for people to query and then say, this is the parcel I want,
Right.
right? If somebody here was some web developer or something and wanted to put a list of all the parts, you could have links for every parcel and you could click on that link and see it. It'd be a lot of tedious front end stuff for you guys to do.
You said you had 131 towns
That are available
That's
in
right.
this assessment kiosk.
and how many where the entire card is available? Did you say 35 towns?
35 where it's available without subscription.
Okay.
Right, yep.
How many towns are converting to this in each year? Just a couple or?
It's this thing being the whole assessing kiosk or the public availability of it.
Of the former?
We pick up this year we're in the position where another software vendor recently announced significant increases in cost. So we've had a lot of their
And how-
towns come over.
and
So
how
this
many?
year we're picking up 8 towns probably.
Okay.
And all of those will be available in some format, whether it's for public or not. So by the end of the year, it'll probably be,
Do you have any
140.
idea what the most common information that's requested is? Do you have any way of counting that?
yeah. You mean by the users of the site
Yes.
themselves?
I mean, for example, we've only had 10 people that wanted to know X.
Yeah.
Do you understand the question?
I do. I don't know if this will answer it. Let me,
Well, maybe off the top of your head if you have a
yeah.
sense.
You sort of need to differentiate between the towns that are, the most information is off the general tab. They click and they see the assessment, who lives there and that. That's because it's available in every town, regardless of subscription,
Right.
right? So that's gonna be the lion's share, and that's probably what most people wanna know. What's my neighbor assessed at? What am I assessed at? What's the guy down the street? Oh, okay, that's fair, or no, I need to find out more. Beyond that, it's the building and the picture. For people either that have subscriptions or the towns where it's publicly available.
A couple of other questions. Is there 1 or 2 or 3 pieces of information that a lot of the towns ask not to be included? Like address, mailing address?
Well, initially that was the address was